All right, so we've taken a look at the CSS components that Bootstrap offers. Now we're going to take a look at some of the JavaScript plugins or widgets. All right, so if you go to getbootstrap.com and you click on JavaScript, it'll give you kind of a list of all the different widgets you can use, along with some examples, some documentation. So what I'm going to do is just give you some examples. We're going to start with the Modal. Okay, a modal is basically kind of like a light box or a pop-up that has content in it. I'm going to just type it out in the simplest way possible. So in the container here, first thing we want to do is have a button or a link that is going to activate the modal. So let's say button, and we'll give this a class of btn, btn primary, and btn lg to make it a little bigger. Alright, and then we need an attribute called data toggle, and we want to set that to modal. Okay, then we want to have another attribute called data target, and you want to set that to an ID. So let's call it my modal, and then we'll end the button and put some text in it. Okay, so that'll give us just a button. So we want to be able to click this and then have a modal pop up. So we're going to go underneath the button and put in a div. We're going to give it a class of modal and also a class of fade, and then we're going to give it an ID. Alright, now this ID has to match your data target. Okay, so we have my modal here, so that's what we want to put as the ID. Alright, and then there's a couple classes we want to put in here, a couple divs with specific classes. This is going to be modal dash dialog, and then inside that we want to have modal content, modal content, and inside that we're going to have a header, so it's going to be modal header, and let's put in a button. This is going to be the close button, so we're going to give it a type of button and give it a class of close and data dismiss. We want to set that to modal. Okay, so that'll be our close button, and then under that we're going to put in our h4, which is going to be our title. So we're going to give this h4 a class of modal title. We're going to give it an ID of my modal label, and in here we'll just put some text. And I just want to indent this a little bit. Alright. Okay, so now we want to go under the header. So the header ends right here. So right here we're going to say div class equals modal body. Okay, and then in here we'll just say this is the modal body, and then we want a footer underneath that. And in here we're going to have some buttons. Okay, so let's say button, and let's see, we're going to give it a type of button. Let's give it a class of btn, btn default, and we also want to add a data dismiss, and we want to set that to modal. So this is going to be a close button, so we're going to put the text close. Alright, and then you'd probably have like a save button, so let's go ahead and add that. We'll give this one a different class. We'll say btn primary, and we'll say save changes. Alright, so let's save that, reload. And now when I click that, you can see that a modal opens, has a title, has a body, and it has 2 buttons. If I go ahead and click close, it'll close it. Okay, next thing is going to be a drop-down. So let's go down here, and we're going to create a div class drop-down. Now this could be a button. It's going to be a button, but you could also use this functionality in your navigation, in your nav bar. Alright, so let's put a button. We're going to give it a type of button. Let's give it a class of btn default. And we want to also add a class called Dropdown Toggle. Alright, and let's give it an ID. Let's say Dropdown Menu 1. Okay, we want to give it an attribute called Data Toggle, just like we did with the Modal, except this is going to be Dropdown. Alright, and then for the text, we'll just say Dropdown. Alright, now we want to go. Actually, you know what? Let's put a caret symbol in here too. So right after the text, we'll say span, and we're going to give it a class of caret. All right, and then under the button, we're going to have a UL, and we're going to give it a class of drop-down menu. Okay, and that's going to have some list items. And we'll just say link. And I'm just going to copy this. And let's go ahead, let's add some line breaks up here. Okay, and then we're going to save, reload, and now when I click that, you can see we get a drop down. Okay, we can add separators in here if we want to. Let's say right here we want to separate from the last link. We can put an li and then put a role of separator and a class of divide, and that should do it. So if we reload, well, it didn't do it. Oh, it's divider, not divide. And now you can see that this is separate from the rest of the links. All right, so that's the drop down. So the next thing is going to be some we want some tabs. All right, like a tabbed menu. So what we can do is let's put in a UL, and we're going to give it a class of nav, and then also nav tabs. All right, and then in here we'll say li, and let's see, this we're going to also give this li a class of active because we want this to be the default one that displays. And then in here we're going to put an a tag. We're going to set this to an ID, let's say tab 1, and we're going to give it a role of tab. And then again, we want that data toggle attribute, and we're going to set that to tab. And in here, let's say home. Okay, so we're going to copy that li tag, and let's paste in 2 more, except we're going to remove the active class here on both of these, and we're going to change the data, the href, we're going to change that to tab 2 and tab 3, and then we'll just change the text. We'll say messages profile. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see we have a nice tabbed area. Now if I click on it, you can see that they change. Now to add content, let me just put some line breaks here, separate that a little. to add content, we're going to go below the UL and create a div, and we want to give this a class of tab content. And in here we're going to have a div. We're going to give it a role attribute of tab panel. We're going to give it a class of tab pane, and then this is going to be the active one. So we want to put in a class of active here as well. And then we also need an ID that's going to pertain to this up here, tab 1. Okay, so we want to put tab 1 in there. And then we can put whatever text, whatever content we want. We'll just say this is tab 1. Alright, and then what we're going to do is copy that and paste in 2 more. Okay, and then this one here, we're going to take the active class off of both of these. We're going to change the ID here to tab 2 and change the text, and then this will be 3, 3. So now if we reload, you see this is tab 1, click this one, this is tab 2, this is tab 3, and it's as easy as that. Alright, so next thing we have is the tooltip. Put some line breaks. So for the tooltip, we're going to put in a button, but of course this could be any element. And let's just give it a class of btn, btn default, and we're going to put in data toggle, set that to tooltip, and then we want to also have a data placement attribute. And we're going to set that to left, give it a title, and we'll just say this is a tooltip, and then whatever text we want for the button. Alright, so let's go ahead and reload that, and we have a button. Now if I hover over it, nothing happens. That's because we need to actually enable the tooltip. So we're going to go down here and add in a script tag, and then we need to somehow identify it with jQuery. So we could put an ID if we want, but I want all data toggle tooltip elements to be able to use tooltip. So what we're going to do is use jQuery here. Instead of putting an ID or something in here, we're just going to say that anything that has the attribute data toggle, and also data toggle equals tooltip. So anything that has that, we're going to run dot tooltip. Okay, just like that. So if we save and reload, now as I hover over it, you can see that the tooltip is over here on the left, which seems to be getting cut off a little bit. So if we want to change the placement, we can simply change this to right, and now you can see it's on the right. We can also change it to top, and we can also change it to bottom. Alright, so tooltip's pretty simple to implement. Alright, next thing we have a popover. So if we go ahead and just add some line breaks here. And I'm actually going to just copy this button with the tooltip that we just did, and we're going to change, let's see, data toggle. We're going to change that from tooltip to popover, and let's see, we don't need data placement. We do need data content. So for data content, we're going to say here is your popover text. Alright, and then for the title, we'll just say popover title. Alright, so let's save that, reload, and now when I click that, nothing's going to happen because we actually have to activate it just like we did down here with the tooltip, except we're just going to change this to popover and this. Alright, and then if we reload and I click here, now you can see we get this nice popover content. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. In the next one, we're going to be talking about the rest of the JavaScript widgets, like the carousel and the accordion menu. Okay, so I will see you then.